versus Aiden Briar, mentioned as the matchup here.
I'm going to start with checking a bingo square here. I have a match with a 2018 Open winner, Aiden Briar, the winner of the No Banless Modern Open at SCGNY.
Oh, yeah.
Colorless Eldrazi.
Was the one defeating Brian Brown-Dewin in the finals.
Does that count as a player having pregame effects? Can I check that one too? All right, we're going to call that a no.
Which pregame effect?
Me stamping the board.
Oh, okay. Well, I would actually argue, because this is a match with them, you have to wait until the beginning of the game to check it off.
Fair. I'll allow it.
Aether Vial turn 1 for Aiden. Magalhaes does not have Aether Vial, so we'll see some mana advantage here on the human side.
Yeah, and for Magalhaes, neither Aether Vial nor Noble Hierarch. They have a 3-4 split, 3 Vial, 4 Hierarch. Consensus seems to be that Hierarch's a little bit more powerful, and the deck not really doing its best things when you don't have either.
Yeah, we do see Mausoleum Wanderer from Edgar.
And a Cavern of Souls not naming Eldrazi elves or humans. That's another bingo square.
All right, just going off here.
Storm that too.
Aiden will Vial in Champion of the Parish, and now looks to make Meddling Mage. Now, game 1, we're not actually going to see much interaction in terms of counter spells, so things like Cavern of Souls, Aether Vial don't matter too much here.
So the most powerful card of the Spirits deck that the Humans deck doesn't have access to is generally going to be Collected Company. Outside of that, you can try to go for either Path to Exile if you're worried about removal, or just one of the Lords. The Lords tend to carry the most weight on the other side of the table.
Yeah, it looks like the name off Meddling Mage was Drogskull Captain. Now, Edgar Enstep is going to use Path to Exile on that Champion of the Parish.
That makes a good amount of sense. Some of the more powerful lines for the Humans deck in this matchup involve using Reflector Mage to knock the Spirits deck off tempo, and the Drogskull Captain plus Second Captain or Phantasmal Image copying, so you have 2, means all your creatures have hexproof. Reflector Mage no longer a viable option in that kind of spot.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. Just getting one of the Lords, I mean, at that point you already have seen that there's likely not a Supreme Phantom in his hand.
Right.
Swinging puts Aiden down to 19, so both players still high life total. And looks like from Edgar's side, just passes, missing a land drop there. And from Aiden, we will see land, Aether Vial, Thalia's Lieutenant, and then Vials in Phantasmal Image, copying Thalia's Lieutenant.
Yikes. And previously, you might have been given some pause against the Spirits deck about Rattle Chains. Notably, that is the card that Aether Vial has taken the slot of in these Spirit decks. You won't see too much of that. And what you can expect is exactly what happens here. Edgar's hand's likely full on more Path to Exiles.
Yeah, so he does path away that Meddling Mage. Drogskull Captain is freed up. Aiden still has not gotten any damage in. He now has a 3-3 Thalia's Lieutenant and a 2-2 Illusion Thalia's Lieutenant.
Still a pretty reasonable board, though. Not a player able to make significant inroads on life totals here. For Edgar, he's a little bit light on mana. Looks like a couple 3-drops stranded in the hand. And for Aiden, four lands, 2 Vials. He's a bit heavy on mana.
Yeah, another path in Edgar's hand, but he will just pass again, missing that land drop. And it looks like on Aiden's side, we see Thalia and another Phantasmal Image.
Thalia not a huge player here, though if Edgar starts making land drops and gets up to 4, the Thalia would push Collected Company a little bit further back. That can be a big deal. And you never really care, actually you never mind, rather, Phantasmal Image up more Thalia's Lieutenants, just getting more power on the battlefield.
No, especially in a matchup like this, that seems like a very good way forward. And looking at Edgar's deck, it doesn't look like he has a way to really pop these Phantasmal Images.
Yeah, you're pretty much looking at casting Path to Exile. He's already cast 2 of his 4 copies.
Yeah, Aiden casts Thalia, then casts Phantasmal Image copying Thalia's Lieutenant. That's a bunch of pump onto each creature here. He now has a 5-5 and a 6-6. It's a swing for 11. Edgar will path the 6-6, but it's still 5 damage coming in.
And I like this here. You see, despite the fact that the image couldn't find a basic land, it's a little bit smaller than the Thalia's Lieutenant proper there, and we know that Aiden is out of basic lands. He's got island and plains on the battlefield already, the Humans deck. Right. Only recently started even playing that second basic land.
Yeah, that island. I mean, and that's something, we'll talk more about that later. We might see it as a trend going forward in Modern. Now, Edgar did hit his third land here.
Yeah, that opens the door for something like Spell Queller could potentially show up in combat. If it was a Drogskull Captain, you probably would have seen it come down. That Meddling Mage was removed.
Well, this should be a check on Spell Queller. Aiden's going to cast Kite Sail Freebooter. That should get Spell Quelled. I'm thinking this might be a misstep on Aiden's side. I would like to see this put into play using Aether Vial just out of respect for that Spell Queller.
Yeah, you probably can afford to do that. I don't know if he's just making sure that the Queller is there. That could be part of the line. It changes the way that you want to attack this turn.
Okay. A swing with Image and Thalia. So 3-2 and 5-5. Because that's Spirit entering play, Edgar could double block to trade with Thalia, but it would give Aiden back the freebooter.
Right, yeah, you wouldn't really make too much in the way of inroads there, and the two creatures combined, they're still smaller than the 5-5 Image Lieutenant there.
Right, so barring a chump block, Edgar's going to drop to 8. But what he's done well here is he's managing most of this board, and he's going to make that double block I mentioned. Aiden, of course, will take the Spell Queller. Now, here's the downside. That last card in Aiden's hand is a second copy of Thalia, so this really is turning on Aiden's hand.
And yeah, you see exactly here with the freebooter entering the battlefield. Edgar's hand's just gummed up with all these 3-mana spells. Drogskull Captain, Geist's Ain't Draft, and Spell Queller doesn't even have a collected company in the event that, there wasn't a Thalia and he had a 4th mana source. Just casting these creatures 2/2s or a 2/3 for 3 mana isn't going to be enough against an already 6/6 Thalia's Lieutenant.
Yeah, that's exactly it, because Bant Spirits is hoping to somewhat race. Yeah, there's a 6/6 on the board. He doesn't really have removal left. He's already used 3 paths. This is a problem without much of a solution.
Right. Yeah, neither of these decks are really looking to play catch-up.
Right.
Really in any matchup. But this one, when both decks are so heavy on creatures, is very much a damage race. Both decks capable of some tricky plays given the right setup. Spirit Stack can generate a lot of power across multiple bodies relatively easily. From a baseline of just having a Mausoleum Wanderer on the battlefield, though, that's not much to build off of.
Well, Ryan, on this game, I'm going to check off one of my bingo squares. Card has 5 or more counters. Normally, we check that one off when someone just pluses a Chandra or something silly like that, but I feel like this is the honest way of doing it.
No, I suppose there's an unstable basic land there. I should check that box. Aiden Briar is playing those.
And we see that Thalia made by Aiden on end step pumps the Image. Now, in itself, is up to 7/7, so it's lethal.
This is bad news for Edgar. Aiden is light on resources. There's that just heavy on lands, heavy on vials, but that second Image, that's starting to become a problem. The first one, as you mentioned, is already lethal on its own.
Edgar's just got to find that Supreme Verdict that he's not playing, and then this will be fine. Yeah, big swing on here. Edgar can block the 7/7, but he'll still take 5, dropping down to 2.
And now even that Thalia is lethal. Just 3 lethal threats on the other side of the battlefield. And even if there were some kind of answer, the freebooter does it in 2 anyway.
So Edgar will pick up the cards here. Game 1 goes to Aiden Briar. Humans taking that one.
And there's been a lot of chatter about Bant Spirits being arguably favored against Humans, but Humans is just such a powerful deck. Yeah. I have certainly lost to it enough times with decks that should be favored.
I agree. There's a lot of, it can win its bad matchups pretty easily. And I think what I felt in that was a mana advantage. From Aiden's side, we had an Aether Vial, and then he was actually the first player to make land drop 3. Those two things together just allowed Aiden to cast all the cards in his hand so much faster. And when something like Champion of the Parish is a card, that speed seems to matter a lot.
Right, and for Edgar, he's playing a deck that plays 4 Hierarch, 3 Aether Vial. You want at least one of these 7 cards in most of your opening hands, and you saw him there miss his 3rd land drop, and really just couldn't. His deck didn't function given that. He had multiple Path to Exiles, but you need more than that. The Humans deck doesn't really draw extra cards, but it presents enough threats where if you just have 2 removal spells, you have to be doing something on top of that.
Yeah, it's Maybe, yeah, the way I was feeling is with a Spirits deck, I would like it to, if it just plays one creature a turn, the deck feels very fair. Now, it can get more than one creature a turn by either using an Aether Vial plus its mana or by making a Collected Company, and Edgar did neither of those.
Right. No mana advantage, no card advantage, no advantage to be found.
All right, we will now look at the sideboards. There should be some interaction coming in here from the players, starting with Edgar Magalhaes. And we're going to see some of the sideboard are anti-combo cards. So he's got 3 Rest in Peace, 3 Stony Silence, 2 Thalias of his own, and then 2 Disdainful Stroke. Also has Geist Saint Traft, Unified Will, Gaddock Teeg, Dromoka's Command, and Worship. So actually a lot of this is just showing respect to combo decks.
Yeah, and very little of this really plays in this matchup. I'm really just looking at 2 cards potentially. I don't mind Dromoka's Command. That can really mess up combat. You see Edgar also has 1 copy of Worship. The Humans deck is really not going to be able to just kill all your creatures unless you're forced to chump block with them, which you won't be if you do control Worship. And the Dromoka's Command also serves as a potential answer if Aiden were to have a Worship of his own, which is a thing that you do see in these creature-heavy matchups.
Yeah, so if Edgar has a Worship in play, then he can just hang out until he has enough Lords or creatures with flying and then kind of coast in there.
Right, exactly.
Wouldn't mind that. On Aiden's side, 3 Sin Collector, 2 Dismember, 2 Gaddock Teeg of his own, 2 Reclamation Sage, 2 Izzet Staticaster, Kataki, Hostage Taker, Whirler Rogue, and Anafenza the Foremost. This is a ton of sideboard for this kind of matchup.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff here. The 2 Dismembers will play a very significant role. Very clean answer to Supreme Phantom, which is among your biggest problems here. And you have your Izzet Staticasters, which are quite good against a lot of what Edgar's bringing to the table. They don't hit everything, but, Noble Hierarch, you have these Mausoleum Wanderers, that kind of stuff. And if you ever get multiple Staticasters, that's one of the strengths of the Humans deck, is even just, not just 2 copies, but Phantasmal Image on Izzet Staticaster, you start to solve even more problems with that. You can also reach for things like Hostage Taker or Whirler Rogue. These are a little bit more dicey. I mostly like those first 2 removal-based options.
Yeah, I really like Dismember because you're going to be spending 1 mana to kill 3 mana creatures. And in this matchup where that mana advantage matters, I'm pretty into that.
Right. In particular, because these are both just creature-heavy decks, and Edgar's deck is playing Collected Company, Aiden's deck is not.
Right.
Getting out in front, managing the battlefield early is going to be how he presses the advantages available to his deck in the matchup.
Yeah, Aiden is going to go to 6 here. Now, if you haven't had a chance to take a look at our weekly sale over on StarCityGames.com, time is still left. We have up to 20% this week off select Modern singles. So some of the cards you're going to see this weekend are all on sale on the store. You can head over and check that out. We have that going on all the way through this weekend, but then it switches over.
Expecting to see pretty big Modern shakeups with Assassin's Trophy being printed, and I see 2 cards that I wouldn't mind having in my Assassin's Trophy deck here.
Ancestral Vision and Hallowed Fountain.
I see 4 cards I wouldn't mind having in my Assassin's Trophy deck here. Eternal Witness and Bloodbraid Elf. I expect to see a bit of an increase in relative power level in the format for those cards.
Yeah, and we will be talking this weekend about those Guilds of Ravnica spoilers, and yeah, I agree. Assassin's Trophy is top of my list of cards I'm looking at in the new set.
Still pretty cold on Ancestral Vision.
Yeah. I actually thought week 1, everyone was playing it. I remember playing a tournament with you that weekend, and I would say this was you played 4 of it in the sideboard.
Yep.
Which actually, I think history has, served you well on that one. People are like, are you going to play that in your Grixis deck? You're like, I might side it in.
Yeah. I brought it in sometimes.
Yeah.
And it was fine.
Yeah, the idea of, really, guys, this card's not that great.
Right. It has spots.
Well, as foretold, I'm into that,
Yeah,
There we go.
That deck is cool.
Yeah, that deck, it's good in that deck.
Yes. Yeah, as foretold, Living End was one of the decks I saw immediately and got the chance to have somebody lend it to me for just a 4-rounder, but I had a lot of fun the time I got to play that deck.
We had the Brain in a Jar decks. Those played it. We see on Aiden's side, Avacyn's Pilgrim and Meddling Mage. I remember in the last Open we played Avacyn's Pilgrim was the entire reason John Rossum did not play Humans.
Right, why even play this deck if you don't have access to that 5th and/or 6th mana creature?
Yeah. Meddling Mage is going to be on Path to Exile this time for Aiden. Remember, he had a 74, a 75 of humans. And I said, hey, he said, I was going to play humans, but I couldn't find an Avacyn's Pilgrim, so I'm playing Jeskai.
I guess I have to play the deck that I wanted to play the whole time.
Yeah, you mean you didn't buy that argument?
John Rossum was looking for an excuse.
No, I mean, it's the linchpin of the humans deck, as will be demonstrated this game. Don't worry about it.
Aiden got to cast 2 spells on the second turn of the game.
We see Drogskull Captain from Edgar. Wanderer swings in for 3. And it's these kind of starts where the pressure's on Aiden because he's going to lose this race pretty quickly.
Yes. Yeah, you would like to see a dismember pretty quick on that captain.
And before another one shows up?
Right.
And then there's no coming back. We see Phantasmal Image in Aiden's hand. We see Mantis Rider. There's Mantis Rider. Meddling Mage and Mantis Rider swing in. That's 5. I imagine Edgar will take the whole brunt of it.
Big fan of that Meddling Mage attack. Aiden is interested in this trade. Looks like Edgar is as well. That'll free up some Path to Exiles, I suppose.
It's like there's no way he makes that block without Path in his hand, right?
Right.
I thought on the attack, I didn't expect Edgar to block, which means he's got a good reason. And it looks like 2 copies of Path to Exile in his hand, maybe 3, which would explain it.
This looks like kind of the nightmare scenario where Edgar has some number of Path to Exile and a 2-mana spell to go with it this turn. That allows Phantasmal Image here and
Looks
that
like
Mausoleum Wanderer to come across.
Looks like Image is on Mantis Rider. It's going to swing in for 3 and then Wanderer for 1.
Yeah, that's a pretty good image.
It's not a real Mantis Rider.
Doesn't have to be. Gets the job done. On the previous turn, it would have been unfortunate if Aiden had access to an Is It Staticaster. On this battlefield, it has become a lot more powerful, as it cleanly deals with the Image and the Mausoleum Wanderer if there were one available. Don't know that I'm seeing one in the holdings, though.
Yeah. Aiden sacrificing Horizon Canopy to draw a card, draws into Thalia's Lieutenant. Vial in a image copying Edgar's image, making it a Mantis Rider, which is actually really relevant because now Aiden has a 4/4 Mantis Rider to Edgar's 3/3 Mantis Rider.
Great sequencing there with the vialing in response to the Lieutenant. You both get the counter on the creature you vialed in and the counter on the Lieutenant because you're responding to the trigger. So large monsters have showed up.
Yeah, but remember how there was those another Path to Exile, and yeah, Edgar has a 3rd path. So hilariously, Aiden plays Meddling Mage, naming Path to Exile, and Edgar looks at his hand and sees 3 Path to Exiles. If you're in Edgar's spot, when Aiden swung with that Meddling Mage, how much were you fist pumping in your head?
He is pretty jazzed.
It's like, oh man, I can win this now.
Especially given the ability to just image the Mantis Rider on that turn. That put Briar under very significant pressure.
And it was a great attack on Briar's side. You know, it's not the kind of thing where it said, man, he made a mistake. It just really didn't work out.
Yeah. Didn't have the soul read.
But Aiden at 7, Edgar at 9. Here's another Mantis Rider from Aiden. Now there's another Path to Exile. Aiden doesn't know that yet. He swings in for 6.
It's not going to feel good when it happens.
Well, it looks like Edgar's lining up a block to try to trade Mantis Riders. So he has 2 cards in hand. We're not sure he has that other Path to Exile.
If you do, you're kind of on board with this and getting rid of the Lieutenant as well or something like.
He's just going to block and then Path. Is there a reason to do that? I mean, it's like good, just general practice.
I don't know that the humans deck does anything. In general, it's a good play. I don't think this is really a matchup where it's going to matter.
Phantasmal Image drawn by Edgar, copies Mantis Rider, and we're on to game 3. That was enough. It's a swing in for 8 in the air. And yeah, trio of Path to Exiles. Going to carry it for Edgar. Interestingly, he didn't actually have his own threat. If Aiden hadn't played the Mantis Rider, Edgar may not have been able to turn the corner there.
Yeah, you could have done something like image the Mausoleum Wanderer, and he was able to produce more spirits. That's a reasonable amount of damage every turn, but the Mantis Rider is pretty much easy mode in that kind of spot.
Right, because from that spot, he just kept imaging his own image. Right, and then it became easier.
Right.
And then it became easier. Right, because from that spot, he just kept imaging his own image. Right, because from that spot, he just kept imaging his own image. And then it became easier. Right, because from that spot, he just kept imaging his own image.
Right.
And then it became easier. Well, we have sideboards again as we go to game 3. You were talking about the 4-drops on Aiden's side. Cards like Whirler Rogue and Hostage Taker. So, and you said they seemed reasonable, but maybe not great.
I think that because of Phantasmal Image specifically, I am inclined to put the Whirler Rogue in my deck, certainly on the play. The ability, because Whirler Rogue can target any creature, not just creatures you control, you can activate it to make your opponent's Phantasmal Image unblockable and just...
You can pop their Phantasmal Images?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's tap 2 artifacts to make a creature unblockable, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep, and when it enters the battlefield, you make 2 1/1 Thopters with flying, which those flying blockers, they can matter in the matchup as well.
Now, is there concern because it also gives your opponent an excellent thing to target with Phantasmal Image, though? You know, they can make a Whirler Rogue. They'll get Thopters even when you kill it.
Yeah, there's something to that, but, 2 1/1 Thopters is not a tremendous consequence in the matchup. That's only 2/3 of a Mantis Rider.
Okay. So, yeah, Whirler Rogue seems reasonable. Is that better or worse than Hostage Taker, something that can be just a straight 2-for-1?
I think quite a bit better than Hostage Taker just because you're not taking anything you really care about casting. Because you can't Hostage Taker Edgar's Phantasmal Images, which are really the creatures that you would want to cast.
And I guess Edgar's deck is has so much tribal synergy. A lot of his cards, if you cast them, don't do as much on your side.
Yeah, Drawskull Capt is just 2 mana 2/2 with flying. So Windrake.
Right. You can Cappy Supreme Phantom. I mean, this is just going to keep being true.
Yeah.
Both players on 7 here for game number 3. Aiden on the play with Aether Vial. Edgar, no Aether Vial, no Noble Hierarch. This feels more like game 1.
Yep, and it's basic planes to start, so I smell a Path to Exile.
Edgar's had 3 of them both games. So... And we'll just see that the 2-mana Champion of the Parish. But wait, all 3 games Aiden has managed to pull off this trick. So plays Champion of the Parish, or plays Thalia's Lieutenant with a trigger on the stack. Vials and Champion of the Parish, they both get a counter. So actually, in that situation, he has to pick, right? He could have had a 1/1 and a 3/3, or he could have had a pair of 2/2s.
Right. And... that turn 1 planes for Edgar, it certainly looks like Path to Exile, so getting the both 2/2s online does make a good amount of sense.
Yeah, good read from Aiden Briar.
Really interesting decision point for Edgar as well. You can choose between the Lieutenant, which these creatures both have the same ability just by themselves, but the Lieutenant's worth a little bit more because when you Phantasmal Image Thalia's Lieutenant, it's worth a lot more than when you Phantasmal Image Champion of the Parish, and that's why you see Edgar go for the path on the Lieutenant.
So upkeep, before the Vial goes to 2, Aiden Vials in Champion of the Parish, then casts Reflector Mage, bouncing Edgar's Supreme Phantom, and here is a swing for 4. Aiden off to the races.
Once again, very far ahead.
This is just that mana advantage, right? Aiden's on the play. He's used his Aether Vial every turn, so it's already created 2 mana. He's just gotten on the board so much faster.
Yep. And this looks like one of those games that Edgar at this point is already probably leaning on that sideboard worship. It's really hard to recover from this much.
Well, yeah, we saw that in the past. Once these Champion of the Parish start getting too big, the Edgar just doesn't answer them. And Aiden, Mantis Rider off Aether Vial, this is... Yeah, everything kind of just mashing sideways. It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Make this a 13-point attack.
And none of it gets ambushed by Spell Queller in a meaningful way. You
Yeah,
see a 3/3, a 5/5, another 3/3, and a 2/3.
It bounces off the Reflector Mage.
Yep.
Okay, so instead of taking 13, you take 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Crack a fetch land to do it, too. Edgar is in trouble.
Yeah, you can see that Spell Queller in his hand. I mean, that's his play. That blocks the Reflector Mage. Edgar will drop to 4.
And I have spotted that Hostage Taker in Briar's hand. So Edgar really can't even do something like Land Worship here, because the Hostage Taker would just be a removal spell for the only creature Edgar controls.
He has both Whirler Rogue and Hostage Taker, actually.
Ooh, the 1-2 punch.
And a Vial that's about to go to 4. How good is that?
That's reasonably reasonable.
When you Vial in Hostage Taker, it's a much nicer card.
It's quite a bit better.
You just immediately cast the thing it takes.
Yes.
This is... Aiden's going to win this turn.
Yeah, and if there is something like a Collected Company here, before blocks,
Vial in the Rogue.
Vial in the Rogue, make a lethal creature unblockable.
Yeah, that seems good.
I'd take it.
You know, I thought Cullis Eldrazi was only a thing in no ban list Modern, where you just, you know, pound out 20 points of damage in like the first 3 turns. But apparently you can do it in Modern too.
Yeah, 1-mana creatures with 5 power are arguably undercosted.
Yeah, these are just the Eldrazi mimics of his deck. And Aiden will cast. Oh, he drew Mantis Rider for the turn, so he'll cast. This is such a good hand.
And it looks like Edgar is setting up to Collected Company.
Yeah, okay,
response,
it's fine.
hoping to trap this with a Spell Queller and then figure something else out because the game is about a little bit more than that.
Aiden's ends a pair of 4 drops. Sure, here's company.
Resolves.
That's fine. Is that Edgar gonna miss?
Ooh,
oh,
that's
okay.
a bingo square for me.
And Edgar extends the hand. He didn't even.
Collected Company finds 1 creature. I don't think that game was
remotely
close.
close.
I can't drum up a Collected Company that makes that game interesting from that spot, so that's kind of whatever. But, yeah, Aiden just ran over Edgar here. And, yeah, maybe Banned Spirits has advantages against humans, but don't count the humans deck out.